When making low poly characters, having better topology can really improve your character, and you'll have less hassle later on when working with like rigging and animation, and even when just modeling parts of your character. So I put together this guide that'll take you like through everything you need to know about making topology for game characters. First, let's cover the basics of character topology. Okay, cool. So here is the topology guide. So firstly, this is a bad example of when you're making your shoulders, you don't want to do this. Basically, you see here, this is kind of bad. It's possible, but it's generally quite bad, and you might get some pretty bad results with it. And let me explain why. You can see here, I have a lot of different like topology and like the guards and all of this. And you'll see a lot of this with higher poly characters. But with lower poly, you don't really have like too much of this. So I'm going to break down like how you actually need to do a character. So firstly, let's look at this top image. Okay, so the most important part about this is like seeing where they put their loops, and where we can like take this over to low poly is in specifically having loops around parts that bend. And this will be your legs, so where they join with the body, your shoulders where they join with the body, and your neck as well. So you can see here they have the neck loop, they have the arm loop, and they don't like actually outline this, but you can see they have a leg loop that goes around like that. So the reason you want to do this is that when you're bending those arms and the legs and the neck, you don't get any weird deformation, because if you don't have a proper loop going around, it won't really bend that well. Now, as you saw my like don't do this example above, why shouldn't you do it like that? So firstly, having your character's arms be all the way down is quite bad. And the reason for this is because if you imagine your character and the range of motion for the arms, if you look at it, so if you put your shoulder here, your range of motion, if you actually raise your arms and don't raise your shoulders at all, you'll see it's kind of slightly above your shoulder line, and then down to like this. Now you can see we have to get this whole range. And now our position is over here. The optimal is to get it in the middle of this. So if we take it here, the optimal is going here. Well, probably slightly higher, but yeah, you know what I mean. You're trying to get the middle. So a lot of people will do T-pose, and that's kind of standard. And that's kind of just for like rigging and stuff. People say do a T-pose, which is kind of unnatural if you're trying to make a good looking character. So I recommend doing an A-pose. This just helps so much, because the thing is, if you make your topology and it's for your arm being all the way down, then now when you bend your arm all the way up, then you're going to have lots of issues underneath. Now the same thing applies for if you're doing a T-pose, like your arm's going directly out. Then if you don't add enough topology on the shoulder, which is especially important when you're making a low poly character, you like probably won't add enough topology. When you bend it all the way down, then if you have your like two faces, then now that two faces have to supply all of the topology for the shoulder. So that's why I recommend having a A-pose character. It's just because it's in the middle, and you'll get the best like bang for your buck of topology, and you can actually design it and have control over what looks nice, and have to like worry about when posing if it will look nice or not. Okay, so if we go back to my example over here, the thing is, this is done quite well with their T-pose, because you can see over here they have these two loops on their shoulder, and the reason they've done this is basically so that when they like bend the arm down, they have a lot of topology there. So you can see here on the bottom they have two faces like that, they're two loops, but then up they go 1, 2, like 3, 4, 5, 6. So they have so many faces up there, and that's basically just to one, give the shape of the shoulder, and when you bring down the arm you won't get as many problems. But this is a lot harder to do on low poly, so that's why I recommend doing the A-pose. This can only work if you can get this like extra loop going like that, and then you can have those two. So that just helps aid the process of like generating as much topology on that shoulder as possible, because that's what you kind of need when bending your arm down. Now you can see there's other things like having loops on your arm, which I'll go into later, how to do your joints and stuff. But there is a better way of doing this for low poly, because you don't really have enough topology going along your arm to get this loop. And again, it's just to get enough topology on that elbow, because the thing is, when you bend your elbow, like the same thing applies. So your arm is normally straight. So then the thing is, when you bend it like halfway or even further, you need to have a lot of topology on that elbow to get it to actually look nice. And also, there's two ways to approach topology. So either like this one, or these two. So it's having like the topology for making a good looking topology and having good deformations, or having just following the muscle. So you can see here a lot of these, it'll look nice like this. So you can see it has all the muscles like this, which is one, higher poly, so it'll take more poly for your game engine. And then you may or may not get better deformation because it's actually following the proper muscles. So in theory, it's better, but it's longer to do. It doesn't have clean topology, so if you need to adapt this to like clothing or anything, you're gonna have a nightmare with that. So yeah, it's up to you, but generally you kind of want to stick with the more clean topology, but then you can kind of push it more to this middle one where they still have all the muscles and stuff, but they kind of like still keep it with the clean like flow of it. So you can see in this right example, the yellow one, you can see it kind of like has all the triangles and intersection and stuff like that, whereas with this middle one you can see it still has a good flow down the side like that, and then a good horizontal like flow like that. So it doesn't really break that. So you can kind of, that's like the middle point, but yeah, it's kind of up to you whether you want to go for the aesthetically pleasing look on your muscles or topology. But yeah, something that's very useful is just look up topology cards like this. You can find like ones for low poly characters. We won't really get like annotated ones like this. Just find like low poly characters that deform really well, and then you can find the high poly ones and kind of break it down to see, will this work for low poly or will it not? Because you can see something like this loop over here in the back, this will not work on a low poly character because you don't have enough polys to get that. Like at most you will get like a specific one that goes like that, but it's quite hard and not really that necessary. You can set, because they're basically just trying to get extra loops there, and an easy way of doing that is just adding like an extra like piece. You just do like this, kind of just generate. There's an easy way of generating extra topology, which is basically like if you have two vertices like that, you just go make it a square like this. Well, it's square, but you know what I mean. There, and then extrude that out. So there, and now you've got through like 4 vertices instead of 2, and then you can kind of just generate more topology like that, and it'll help on there, because same thing as before, your leg is going to be straight by normal and then going to raise later on, so you're going to need to have a lot of topology on over here and over here. Moving on to joints. So in the beginning, you know that I mentioned having like a good amount of like topology on the like shoulder, on the like where the legs join the body, and the same thing for the neck. And the reason for this is basically so that when you bend, again, to have enough topology. So the way this works in like low poly is something like this, which is a character I made. So you can see I just literally just add that extra loop just to make it that much better when doing it. Now I don't even have that much topology to like on those joints. Like you can see even here, they've done a bit more than me. So one, well, not that many because I have all the topology above, but you see just adding this extra 2, because the thing is, if you compare the position, because it has this little like down and then out, so the thing is, if that wasn't there, then it would actually look like that. So it would cut away so much volume of the leg. So just adding that extra loop can do a lot. So yeah, so just find like some good ones, experiment. It depends on how you want your character to look, because you can have like stuff specific to like low poly. You can have ones with like a bunch of triangles, so it depends on if you want to add triangles. So you can see there, this is for the elbow. I'd say maybe even we're having 3, but this is basically like depending on if you want to keep the volume of your arm when it bends. So you can see here, they're just trying to get this on the right, like in the middle, so that when you bend your arm, it still has the elbow like point like that. So you're still not losing volume on the forearm as well, but it still keeps that nice sharp bend for the elbow. And then what they're trying to prevent is having the collapse in the arm. So you can see here, specifically this one in over here. So you can see here, when it like by default, this is what's going to happen. It's going to kind of like do that, and that's just because it's kind of like conflicting vertex groups. So when you bend the arm, it kind of goes in, which is not as natural. So there's like different ways of doing it. Either you can do it with just adding more edges, which doesn't fix it that well, but it does it a bit better. So yeah, it's kind of just stuff like that. So it's kind of up to you on what you're fine with, because you get stuff like this where the default will look like this, which is a bit better than if you only have one vertex. So if you only have like this piece and then it goes up to there kind of thing, it looks a lot better than if you had that. But it also, if you want, you can do it this way, where they add that little triangle and then that face. So when you bring the leg down, it doesn't like collapse in on itself, if you know what I mean. That kind of just the little triangle collapsing part. It's kind of up to you. A lot of topology will kind of be up to you. You kind of just have to decide what you like and what works, and they kind of stick with that. Because topology, it won't make a good character, but without it, it can break a character. So especially when animating and all of that. So you kind of just want to get something that works and something that you can just do consistently. So it's just a template, so you don't have to worry about it later on. It's cool. So yeah, is a better example of it. So you can see here, it has the there, it goes out like this. And then you have here, when it goes in, it collapses with that little bump, which some people don't like, some people will be fine with it. It's like up to you. But then you also have this upper one, which they have there, the square and the triangle. And then you can see when it bends, it doesn't have that like loss of volume and that bit like collapse in on itself. So yeah, again, up to you. Just find what you like the most. An example is for the fingers, because you can see here, your fingers should not look like this. So to keep that volume again, add more topology, add more edges, and then you can add these tricks if you want to keep it like not from like breaking down. So you can see here, they just added a triangle in there just to get an extra one. So this is basically saying, kind of similar to what I said before. So basically you have two vertices, and then you kind of do that, and then you do that to get those extra vertices. So now you got your three. So you could do this. This looks a lot better on your hands than if your like side of your hands did this. But I mean, it won't be that much worse. So if you don't want to get triangles, then kind of do it more like that on your joint, which will probably look quite nice. After we got the body and all the limbs, then we need to add a head and decide what level of detail do we want to add to it. Cool. So with the face, it's kind of up to you. Basically being, do you want to have a high detail face or a low detail face with your low poly character? So basically the two different approaches you can go is something like these three over here. Or they're kind of two because it's just one image, but that's the wireframe of it. So I guess there, three. So basically you can either say here, with your face, you kind of just don't worry about too much about the topology. You kind of just need to, I mean, it's kind of a bad example because basically what you want is to have a loop around it, so you can actually get decent deformation, and then kind of just have it like go up, follow like a jaw kind of thing. You can kind of like triangulate maybe just there, just kind of get a good looking face with the topology just flowing up, and then kind of going around, going across, so kind of like a square grid pattern basically. That's kind of one way of doing it. And you can see this kind of just like slightly different ways. So you can see here, they have more triangles and again, like kind of like a loop going around the face like that, which is kind of something that'll show up in higher poly characters, but just a very, very low poly version of it. So you can see like they have the chin and then they kind of have a loop going around. So this will go up and then kind of go over the head, which is something that you'll see in a lot of higher poly faces. So that's kind of the very low one. You can either just have it go straight up. What I usually do to make those is just like take a cube, subdivide it, maybe like bevel it so there's like 3 across and that kind of thing, and then that's kind of what I base it off of. So I don't actually add that much, and it's just kind of a sphere, and then you like drag it down, add the jaw kind of thing, and make sure that you get a neck with decent topology so you can actually bend your neck. Or you can go this kind of route where you actually still have the facial features. Now you can get a very lower poly version of this, which is like here with the loop going around kind of thing. Or you can like just base it off of this. This is one from CG Cookie, which is very good, and I love using this one. So basically, you can see they kind of give you a cheat sheet of the 5 loop that you need in the face. So you can see raccoon, eye socket and lids, nose to chin, lips, jawline. So you can see the 5th one. Let's just go 1 to 2. So this one around the eyes. So this is basically like when you move your eyebrows and stuff. That's kind of just very important, and it also supports having the eye loop. So you need that one before you get the eye loop. So then you can see, then you get the eye loop, and that's kind of helped by that other loop. So it's kind of a supporting loop to generate that. Cool. Then the 3rd one, the nose to chin. This is basically to help with the jaw and the muscles, because you see like here, you kind of, if you look at your face, you kind of see that it kind of flows around and then your jaw, so you can kind of get decent deformation when you open and close your mouth. Okay, and then from that as well, again, this helps because like you have this loop going around, that helps generate the mouth loop, which you kind of just need a circle going around your mouth so you can actually move your mouth around and go open and close, whatever. Cool. And then the last one that just like loops it all is having this one, and that was the same one that I could see on the low poly character. It's just this whole thing to help with the jaw and just kind of encapsulate the whole piece of topology and make sure, because like you see all of this is kind of like very random direction, but it's kind of just to force it going like out this way, so it's kind of just keeping it all going out and all going down kind of thing. So you can base it off of that, which is quite useful. Yeah, so again, it's subjective to you if you want to add the facial features. This just helps. So you can kind of like, this is a very nice like way of doing it. You can see it still has all those loops, and you can kind of like simplify it down if you need to. Our character's looking good, but having stumps at the end of your arms and your legs isn't great. So let's go through how to make the feet and the hands. Next is the hands, because this is something that can be like very easily messed up. And yeah, so basically there's kind of 2 different ways of doing it, is depending on how many fingers you actually want on your character. So a good example of this is this one. So if we line up these 5, so you can see the kind of the level of topology, and they kind of use the same thing that I said earlier with the topology. So you see they have 2 faces here, and then they go there, there. So it's just the same, but just add an edge loop in the middle. So they went from 2 vertices to 8 vertices. So that's 3 vertices, but 2 phases to 4 phases, which is very useful. So instead of having to add a bunch of like vertices going up and down your arm, you can just generate it here for the fingers. So this is very useful if you want to do the 4 fingers, because it's quite standard to have the like 2 over here, so probably like 8 vertices going down the arm, or 6 vertices going down the arm. Yeah, it's like 6. So that's kind of just a very easy way of getting those 4 fingers down, if you want to get the square fingers. But you can also see another way of doing it is like here on the right, where they have the same thing. They've done instead of doing this method over here of how they did the topology, what they did is they did these little like triangle over here to get the extra vertices, and I think this might also be another triangle over here to get it, which I'm not sure about, but it kind of works. But then you can see they've done these little triangles, and that's basically just to say, instead of like you have your hand going out like this and then just your fingers come out like that, instead what they've done is they made it so that your hand goes out like this, and then they added those triangles like this to kind of get a diamond. So it's basically just rotating it, which looks a lot nicer when you have that square. Having it in a diamond shape makes it like look quite a lot nicer, but it also will add a bit more topology. But you can see, so it's kind of up to you if you want it to look nice that way. It depends on what you think looks nice to your opinion. But yeah, so generally this topology is going to improve, and you can kind of decide if you want to use these like knuckles and rotate it. And you can see here they don't really have any like things on the things, so when you bend your fingers it's going to look a bit weird. So you can see here they've added these triangles just to make sure that it doesn't have the same bugs that we're talking about before. Now if you want to do, this is like what I do a lot, is the mitten hand or whatever. They already have 3 vertices with the noir, but they even had more topology than this one, and it has 4 fingers. But basically all this one is just, instead of having all the fingers done, you can kind of just simplify it down into a mitten, and you can either do it just use the whole hand. So I usually do like that, so it's just one group like that, or you can do it like this, they've added another vertex, which isn't great, but you can do the same thing as this one if you want to get the topology, or just the triangle. So kind of just going like, if they have a 2 going like this, then just triangle, and then if your finger going out, and then this is kind of just to like add a bit more like detail to this hand. Or you can literally just simplify it and take it down to like 2 vertices or 2 faces like this, which still looks quite nice. And or you can even just keep them together, as I said before. So again, it's up to you depending on what you like the most. But that's kind of just the general couple different ways of doing it. And yeah, just a couple of extra examples, but these are all quite a bit more higher poly. So yeah, you see this is another one where they've done the exact same triangular thing, and it looks quite nice. So yeah. Okay, something I didn't really mention before is use Sketchfab. So basically, the reason you use Sketchfab is you can take the model and you can break it down and see the mesh and the wireframe of it, which is very useful when you're doing it. Basically, the reason this is useful is because when you have like the thing, you can break it down. So what I'm using currently is PureRef. Just chuck all the images in PureRef, or chuck them in like Paint. Just chuck it in Microsoft Paint and start annotating over them, so you can break it down and see what is actually good topology. So this is in this is in PureRef, and PureRef basically just, you can store a bunch of images in it, which is really useful. So I recommend using that, so you can build that library of that, like what is good topology and what you like yourself. Again, with the feet, it's quite simple, and it's basically just what kind of thing do you like the most. So you can see here you have like the one toe kind of thing, and then they've done triangles to generate it, which you don't actually need, because I mean, it would look fun if it just looked like this. There was this straight line down there. So you can see there, it would have worked completely fine like that, but there, it was up to them. And then you can also see in the corner up here, this is kind of just without the extra toe, or like the separation of the toe. So again, it's kind of how you like prefer, but you generally what you want is like your leg comes down, and then you have a specific edge like that, or it's better showed off over here. So you kind of come down with this loop, and then your topology goes down, and then also kind of extrudes forward. So you can see there, you kind of just converting it from like going downwards like this into going forwards like this, because that's what you need to kind of do the toes and the rest of the foot. But yeah, so you can kind of just screenshot these, break it down to what you like, but especially when making a low poly character, you can see it's just go down, have that loop, and then just make sure that it flows forward from there. Yo guys, I know it's been a while, but I'm back working on videos. So let me know what you want out of the next couple of videos, if you have any specific requests or anything. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video and found like everything useful, then click over here. I have a video all about weight painting and how it can like really mess up your topology and all of your bending and all of that stuff. So watch that now. Cheers.